Hey guys, and welcome to my video about the top 10 programs for your arcade cabinet. Now, one thing I'd like to say before I begin is that this list is a bit different from my usual top countdown video, meaning this list is mostly suggestions. And depending on how serious you are about bringing your cabinet to the next level, the true usefulness of each program varies from user to user. With all that out of the way though, let's begin the list. Number 10. Kodi. While some of you may think this is an odd one to have on an arcade cabinet, and yes, I will agree, it definitely belongs on the living room TV for the most part, but when you consider the direction Launchbox is taking us, as far as visuals and how customizable Kodi's interface is, it really goes great together. I personally have it modded to be my jukebox, but it does play your movies, television shows, and pictures, as long as it's hooked into your home network and you're sharing those files with it. Sure, there's other more classic or authentic looking software to use for a jukebox, but my preference will always be Kodi, simply for the versatility. Number 9. Plane 9. Plane 9 is a software that I stumbled across a few months back while I was looking for an external graphic equalizer to display on my marquee monitor while music played through Kodi. Let me tell you, Plane 9 does that, and so much more. If you want a basic graphic EQ, then it has those. But if you want a balls out fancy looking 3D graphic EQ, well, it has those too. Matter of fact, there's over 250 different patterns you can choose from when deciding on which one you want to display. Now, not everyone needs a graphic EQ on their arcade. Well, what am I saying? Yes, you do. You need this. You think you don't, but you do. Number 8. Fightcade. I found out about Fightcade from Simply Austin, so it was a bit late to the game, so to speak, but better late than never, I guess. Fightcade is a program that allows you to play Capcom and SNK games, as well as a lot of other well-known games from other companies, online. Yes, that's right. If you're sick of playing Street Fighter 2 for the 1000th time, alone in your basement, you can join the crowd of people in Fightcade and find an opponent to lose to instead. It's not only fighting games though. There's many multiplayer games that you can join for some co-op fun too. Keep in mind, since this is an online program though, you will need to have your arcade system connected to the internet to get any functionality from it. It also requires a keyboard and mouse to navigate the menu up until you find your game. Number 7. Event Ghost. Event Ghost is definitely not a necessity by any means. You can use Auto Hotkey to perform just about anything Event Ghost can do. So why do I include this program on the list instead of Auto Hotkey, you might ask? For the ease of use and the amount of time that it saves you. Unless of course you prefer typing out AHK files, but most people don't. It basically gives you a drop-down menu where you're able to select actions and reactions for events that happen on your system. Want to run a program the same time as your front end? It'll do that. Want to send key presses when an emulator loads? It'll do that too. Let's say you're using Plane 9 and wonder how the hell you move it to another monitor when Kodi starts. This does it. I'll have a tutorial for this one coming out soon, so watch for that. Number 6. DMT, or Dual Monitor Tools. DMT, or Dual Monitor Tools, is a monitor management program for people who have more than one monitor on their computer, or in this case, arcade cabinet. It allows you to set separate wallpapers on each individual monitor and has programmable hotkey functions to change wallpapers on the fly. The most important thing it does, at least in my case, is allows you to set a hotkey to lock your mouse cursor onto a monitor, and the program starts with Windows. I was having an issue where the kids playing on my arcade would spin the trackball and then press buttons, which eventually led to the mouse getting locked on the marquee monitor and freezing the emulator when it loses focus. But this allowed me to lock my mouse cursor to my main monitor, and only if I hold down the middle mouse button will it move to the marquee monitor. Problem solved. Number 5. HyperMarky EDS LED Blinky. Yes, another dual monitor program. It's the last one, I swear. This one though, or I should really say these three, work hand in hand to create some wonderful things. Let's start with HyperMarky. It's pretty much a front end for artwork, and it's used to set where everything goes on your screen. It can display videos, with or without sound, hyperspin themes, marquees, GIF images, overlays, underlays. I mean, it really is the best tool for artwork display out right now. On the other side, you have LEDBlinky. which handles automation, whether it's for a dot matrix display on a pinball cab or arcade buttons flashing away to pre-programmed patterns on a cabinet. It handles those things. Lastly, EDS is the program that ties it all together. It communicates with HyperMarky and LEDBlinky and sends the information to your front end as to when the events are triggered. Honestly, all three of these programs are so fantastic, they could have put them in separate spots on this list. But since they all go together, there was no way to talk about them individually without mentioning all of them every time. Number 4. Keymappers. While a keymapper may not apply to most people with a joystick encoder, there are still some that need it for PC games, and it's pretty much a standard program if you're using a keyboard encoder. There are a lot of keymappers to choose from, and whichever you choose pretty much just comes down to what you're most comfortable with, as most of them do the same thing in the long run. Some choices are Joy to Key, if you want to program joystick buttons to act as keyboard keys, or VJoy, if you want to program keyboard buttons to act as joystick buttons. There is of course the big dog, Xpadder, which seems to be the most popular choice, but I personally feel it's mostly aesthetics that put it ahead, as the functionality is pretty much the same as Joy to Key. Then there's another one called Anti-Micro, which I found a while back, and it actually does something that most keymappers don't. If you have an Xbox 360 controller, you can actually use Anti-Micro to program the guide button with a function. Unfortunately, Rocket Launcher does not have support to switch profiles for Anti-Micro yet, if they ever will. So I actually run Xpadder for main functionality and Anti-Micro just for the guide button on my controller to open pause. Number 3. RetroArch. RetroArch. What can I say about RetroArch that hasn't already been said? If you don't know what RetroArch is, consider this. Open your emulator folder and look at all of those folders. Look inside all of those folders, at all of those complicated EXEs, DLLs, and config files scattered throughout. Now, consider if you had the ability to take all of those files from those 20 some odd emulators and condense them all into one simple folder. You now have RetroArch, the easiest and most simple solution to emulation there is. With tons of emulator support, constant updates, as well as a beautiful user interface that's filled with so many options it'll make your head spin. You would think that's more than enough to convince anyone that they need this program in their setup. But there's more. Enter Retro Achievements. Still a work in progress, it's still the coolest feature to be added to any retro emulator in a long time. And if you haven't picked up that controller to play Super Mario Bros. In a while, it definitely gives you a whole new reason to do so. Number 2. Rocket Launcher. Now, you didn't honestly expect me to make a top 10 programs list and not include Rocket Launcher. Come on, you must be new here. You don't need Rocket Launcher to play your games or even launch your games, as most front ends do this for you. But what Rocket Launcher does do is take your already beefy front end and wraps it up in crispy bacon. Without much trouble at all, you're able to add fade images to cover up all those nasty windows and command prompts that pop up while loading games. You can also add in bezels to cover the blank spaces around your games and retain a 4:3 aspect ratio. With very little work on your end, you can easily have more difficult systems such as Daphne up and running in minutes because all of the code is run through modules created by the Rocket Launcher team, and they are updated quite frequently. Now, some or all of these features can be performed through some front ends and programs such as RetroArch already, but there's one thing that none of those other programs have yet to match, and that's the pause menu. Oh yes, the best part about Rocket Launcher in my opinion, and when shown the proper love, it can be an entity all its own inside your cabinet. Sometimes I'll start up a game just to go to the pause menu and enjoy the media side of the game, rather than play the game itself. The pause menu can display artwork, videos, maps, books, magazines, and even plays music soundtracks from the game itself if it's in your media folder. It allows you to save and load game states, change discs, view statistics of your playing habits, move lists. Seriously. Number 1. Front ends. Probably the most obvious, yet most crucial program on this list is a front end. Yes, you can run an arcade machine without a front end, but it's about as much fun as spanking a beehive with a spatula, and just as painful. A front end is responsible for presenting your games in a well-ordered manner, and usually consists of multiple layered menu systems laid out in alphabetical order and separated by systems. While it does carry that major responsibility, it has an even bigger one, and that's to make it all look as pretty as possible. And most front ends manage to do that in very different ways. It can be fairly daunting to settle on a front end. I mean, once you choose one, you're pretty much in it for the long haul. And once you put tons of time into one front end, you'll be hard pressed to change to another. There are a lot of them out there, and some of the major ones are Hyperspin, Launchbox, Game EX, Attract Mode, Mémoire, and Maximus Arcade, to name a handful. Of course, there are a few things you may want to consider before making your final decision on which front end you'll have in your arcade cabinet. First, price. If you're looking for a free front end, then keep in mind that some of these have a price to unlock the full features. But in my opinion, they're all worth the price tag, and it's really not that much for what they offer. Next, if you don't really have a lot of front end know-how, or you're new to emulation, then you may find yourself hitting a brick wall more often than not when choosing, say, Hyperspin or Launchbox, as they're more advanced when it comes to adding media and making them look presentable. Next, you have to figure out for yourself what you want from your cabinet. Do you want a high-tech front end with colorful artwork, 1080p video themes, and multiple layers of menus like Launchbox or Hyperspin? Or would you rather have something less flashy and more to the point, like Mémoire or Game EX? Remember, you're the one who'll be using this machine, so it's important you choose what is going to keep you coming back. Lastly, what can your computer handle? If you're running a Pentium 4, then you may have some issues with, once again, Hyperspin and Launchbox, so you may want to stick with something lighter, like, once again, Mémoire or Game EX. Whichever front end you choose though, just remember that they'll all have forums, or people that'll help with setting them up if you get stuck, so don't be afraid to ask for assistance. And that'll do it. Thank you everyone for watching top 10 programs for an arcade cabinet, and look for more videos like this as well as tutorials for most of these programs in the near future. Take care, guys.